All right, at this time, we're going to go ahead and get started. My purpose in preparing this town hall today is just to give a little bit more information into what school will look like when we start back, actually on Monday for pre-K to 2, and also our ESCE and our special needs students that would be starting this Monday. The following Monday, of course, we'll have 3rd through 5th graders. So our goal is to kind of give you a little bit more insight into what campus life will look like, at least in the current pandemic. And then after I finish sharing some slides and some information, I'll open it up to any parents who may have questions. So I appreciate you all logging in, and excited to have you, and hope that this will be helpful to you. All right, some general information. Again, in-person instruction will begin for our CASE, our ESCE, and our pre-K through 2nd graders on September the 14th. That's this coming Monday. In-person instruction will begin for 3rd through 5th graders on September the 21st. Each day, the doors will open at 8:05. So that'll give us time to get the students in. We'll be able to social distance. We'll be able to make sure that, we're not overly crowded walking in the door. But school will actually begin at 8:35. That is later than last year. School will begin at 8:35 a.m. The end of the school day will be at 3:45 p.m. All students must have an information update completed via Blackboard. That is their records updated, and you can go in Blackboard and do that. That was actually due August the 31st, but if for any chance, if somebody who still didn't get that done, we still want to go ahead and have you do that. All in-person students, parents must complete the attestation form on our website, and it's also been sent via email as of yesterday, September 11th. And that form basically just shares with the parents what the expectations are in terms of if their child is sick, particularly if they're exhibiting any COVID-19 symptoms, that they know that they need to leave them at home and for the safety of everybody. And it's just a form that says that I, understand all those things, and you're electronically signing it saying that you understand. For arrival, there will be temperature checks each morning for all students. And there actually be temperature checks also for all staff. But for our car riders, our walkers, and our bus riders before entering school. The student's temperature must be less than 100.4 degrees. This is per CDC and our state guidelines. Parents will have to drop off at the porch. Parents may not enter the building to drop off students at this time. Based on a decision meter, we're still in orange. And so this is different for me as principal. I love to see all the parents come in and escort their students. But based on where we are with the COVID protocol, that just won't be possible at this time. So we'll need your help with that. Now, there will be staff able to escort our students to their classes, and all that's going to be worked on, particularly the first few days, because the newer students wouldn't necessarily know exactly where to go and that kind of thing. But we'll definitely be all staked out, all hands on deck to help support you with that. School supplies should fit in a baggie, I would say by 8.5 by 11. That way students can transport it themselves. If there's additional items that are needed or need to be brought to the school, we'll coordinate that after we kind of get settled those first couple of days. Please label whatever supplies that you bring. Breakfast will be eaten in the classroom. Masks must be worn to school and be worn throughout the day. Parents do need to stay in the car rider line just long enough to make sure that temperature is taken. We will have 3 touchless temperature machines out there. So it should go pretty quickly, but we just want to make sure, so just in case that temperature isn't right, we can address it right then and there. In the classroom, students will be at least 6 feet apart. Cardboard dividers will be in their seating area. These will kind of be basically like the testing folders that we use to make sure that they, you know, would be able to not see each other's tests and that kind of thing. Students must wear masks during class. Movement will be limited, and that is again to continue the social distancing. Work areas will be cleaned after each transition. Students are strongly encouraged to bring their own sanitizer. Instruction will take place in person and virtually in alternate fashion or simultaneously based on the classroom. Each teacher will share the specifics. The purpose here is that teachers will make sure that they're able to take care of their in-person students and also their distant students. So it may mean that they may alternate independent work, those kinds of things. So they'll definitely give you updates on how that will look. For transitions, students must bring water bottles labeled with their name if they want to drink water throughout the day. We will obviously not be using the water fountains. Those will be shut down. And as far as the bathroom is concerned, based on the COVID protocol, students will use every other stall in the bathroom. And of course, masks will be required during the transition. For lunch, our pre-K and K students will eat in their classrooms. Our K through 5 will eat socially distanced in the cafeteria. There will be at least 2 seats between each student. Any classroom or grade that surpasses capacity will then eat in their classrooms. The cafeteria tables will be cleaned after each grade level eats. No lunch deliveries will be accepted. Parents may not visit for lunch at this time. And then there will be no birthday cakes or treats or anything like that delivered. So I know there's been a practice where parents might deliver lunch, whatever. Please make sure if you want them to eat lunch other than what's in the cafeteria, that you go ahead and supply them with that as they come in the building first thing in the morning. Students must wear a mask and be socially distanced at recess. So recess equipment will not be used. Recess will look a lot different this year. Recess will basically be the kids being able to kind of move around and just kind of get that energy out, run around. They will still have to distance. There will be 3 zones, so there'll be staff out there to make sure that the kids are zoned in those various areas so they can kind of make sure that they're distancing. Specials or CAPE, students will transition to specials with their teachers. We will have art, library, music, and PE. Those will be the specials or the electives. And there will be a brief break between each class that comes in, so those rooms can be cleaned as well. Dismissal. Students will remain in class until they're dismissed to their specific transportation. So the idea is we don't want a lot of kids in the hallway. So if they're getting picked up by parents, we'll have a system where, you know, once that parent pulls up, then we release that child. For buses, we'll release based on exactly when that bus arrives and, you know, by grade level and et cetera, so that we make sure that we don't have too many kids in the hall. Of course, for walkers, we'll space that out as well. So those that are walking home, then we'll make sure that they're distanced so there's not too much traffic. COVID protocol. Here's the key piece. If a student is identified as potentially having COVID symptoms while they're here at school, which I want to reference that attestation form again, our purpose in getting that out to all parents who are going to have students in school at this time is to make sure that they understand, don't send them if they think that they have those symptoms. But of course, if, you know, something should happen once they get here or et cetera, then the nurse would determine if they needed to be isolated. If the nurse determined that if that student needs to be isolated, then we will have the parent come and pick them up. Once that takes place, myself and the campus administration will collaborate with Spring ISD to determine next steps. It's very much case by case. It depends on what is determined. but it could mean everything from a note to those parents to make them aware. It could be that that room is shut down. It could be that that wing may be shut down for a specific period of time. But that protocol is definitely something that we have to collaborate with the district on. And so our main purpose and our goal obviously is to always make sure that everyone is safe. Again, in this COVID-19 situation, things are very, very different, but we're working as hard as we can to make sure that we keep things as safe as humanly possible, to make sure that all of our Marlins are safe and doing well with the in-school instruction. And so at this time, I want to go ahead and open for questions. Right? What questions do we have?
Good afternoon, Mr. Walker. This is Sean McKellen. I just want to know, is there extra protocol that's happening on the buses? I know originally Spring ISD put out that they would take temperatures before the kids boarded the bus. Has that changed?
Well, to be honest, from what we've been told, we are tasked at the campus level with making sure that, well, let me just say this. I have tasked the campus level to make sure that temperatures are taken no matter what once they get here. So I'm not exactly sure what protocol transportation is going to put in place prior to, but we made sure that anybody coming off the bus would automatically be getting a temperature check regardless. So as far as prior to or getting on the bus, I honestly can tell you that I think that was still kind of in flux, but we just took the extra step, which we would take anyway. We'll basically have about 7 temperature monitors here. So there'll be 3 in the front for car riders. There'll be 2 for walkers and 2 for bus riders. So we'll, divide the staff up to make sure that everybody's temperature is taken coming into the building, students and teachers. Yes.
Thanks.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Hi, I have a question for you. What's the earliest we can drop the kids off at school?
8:05. So let me just tell you, because we're in the COVID, what we can't do is, kind of in the past, we might say, okay, you just go sit on the bench or whatever. I'm just using that example, not saying you did that, but go sit on the bench at 7:45. The reason we can't do that, we're going to ask parents if their child is a car rider to kind of stay in that line, even if you want to get in there early, but stay in there until about 8:05. That way we have people already stationed, ready to take the temperature, because what we don't want is if we take the temperature, it's just, God forbid, but we take the temperature and then it's too high and then you've already, driven off. It's so much easier if we just say, okay, we take the temperature, and it takes a second. I mean, we got the nice ones, but
okay.
It takes a second. And then we'll kind of nod at you, and just say, hey, he's good or she's good. And then you go on and do what you need to do.
Okay, so 8:05.
I hope that helps.
Yes.
We're trying to make that as fast as possible. We kind of timed it out. We feel like we can get, really a second each. In theory, we could get 30 kids in, less than a minute. I mean, I'm just saying, assuming they're getting out of the car, it might take a little bit longer, but it shouldn't be something that's going to keep people, bogged down, because they've all been trained and it goes pretty quickly. I even figured out how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Good question. Other questions?
I have another question for the bus. My son for Monday, I'm gonna go drop him off, but then in the afternoon he's gonna ride the bus, and then probably on Tuesday he's gonna be already riding the bus, so he's gonna be a bus rider.
Okay.
But the teacher was mentioning something about rounds, but she really didn't go into detail with it. What is exactly going on with the buses?
So the big challenge is, and I would probably, well, you're doing a good thing by having him dropped off the first day, because the buses are dealing with trying to figure out how many kids are actually going to ride the bus. So naturally, parents normally say, hey, my child's going to ride, but there may be instances where a child is out there and the bus is never going to say, I'm not going to take a kid to school. So let's say that that parent was not the parent, but the child was not accounted for, then the driver's still going to pick them up. But the question becomes, with social distancing and all of that, how many can they get in a round? So normally right about now, since we're still in orange, I believe it's probably no more than 20 at a time. So if they get beyond the capacity of 20, that's when the second round comes.
Okay, so by rounds they mean once the bus is full of the 20, it goes back to the school, drops them off, and comes back to the home.
Yes, back when
Okay.
I'm dating myself now, but when I was growing up, you know, we used to have the A run and the B run. You know, that was
Okay.
kind of normal back then. But anyway, there's not a whole lot of that anymore, but because of the COVID and making sure that the bus is not too full, that's where we are. So the bus drivers are trying to figure out that spacing of exactly how many, because to be honest, you know, there may be a parent who signed up for transportation and just decides not to. When I say transportation, I mean bus transportation. They just may decide not to use it. You know, some parents may feel more comfortable with them constantly, you know, dropping them off themselves, for
Okay.
instance. So that's why that's when they say rounds, they just mean A and B. And so I would just work really, really closely with transportation. You can also call the front office. You can also go online. They should have those routes to kind of give you an idea of when your child should be picked up, that kind of
Okay.
thing. Between our front office, the transportation online, and you know, you could actually, if you wanted to, you could call transportation as well. But we should have most of that information for you even as early as Monday.
Okay, and are they still riding the same bus as last school year, or is it different bus
That
number?
part, I'll be honest with you, I would just say check with the campus or check online, because it could have changed. It could have changed.
Okay.
I mean, the physical bus number may have changed.
Okay.
And that a lot has to do with just how many different routes they're trying to run. So
Yeah.
transportation has had to make a lot of changes in terms of trying to make sure, even that has a lot to do with why our time changed. Our time changed because they're needing more time to get all the different levels of kids to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Good
school is
question.
gonna be from 8:35 to 3:40, right?
8:35, excuse me, 8:35 to 3:45, yes.
Oh, 3:45. Okay.
Other questions?
Good afternoon, Mr. Walker.
Hey there.
Hi there. Will the students be required to bring their Chromebooks to and from school every day, or will they reside at school? How are we going to?
So it's kind of a comfort level. I will be honest with you with that and tell you that I would probably really leave that. I mean, let me say this. Of course, for the safety and making sure that they're not damaged or whatever, it's easier to leave them here. But I would definitely have that conversation with the teacher. I've kind of left that up to the, you know, what the teachers, you know, how they feel comfortable and the parents feel comfortable. If you say, hey, I just want them to leave it there because I don't want it damaged, then by all means work that out with the teacher.
Thank you.
I don't want to say absolute, because on the other end, there may be students who are responsible and can handle it and may want to work at home as well. And I don't want to restrict that, particularly older students. I mean, not to characterize them, but you know what I'm saying. Good question. Thank you.
Mr. Walker, you have a couple of questions in the chat also.
Okay, hold on. Let me look in the chat. Hold on. They're going to walk to the porch, so that, you know, we have a kind of a long porch. So that porch, which is that area right there on the outside of the car riders, that area, that's where they'll be able to walk to. from there, we'll begin to walk them in. And I know that's different. It hurts me as principal to even have to tell y'all that. But I just can't do it because I don't want to increase that risk of those additional people being in the building. So the car rider tag, just call the front office. They'll get you a car rider tag. Thank you. I'm sorry, I hadn't looked in the chat. Thank you so much. I hope I answered those questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for tuning in. I really wanted to have this opportunity. I care about you all so much. And I send a lot of stuff. I email y'all probably, at least once a week with the newsletters and the updates and all of that. But I wanted to take an opportunity to try to have a virtual face-to-face. It's not a physical, but a virtual face-to-face for parents that had additional questions. I'm gonna be very honest with y'all. Y'all know this is going to be different. It's just different right now. But I wanted to make sure that y'all were clear on what that difference would really look like. And so just so y'all would know, if y'all have friends or other parents, I realize this is Saturday afternoon and people are busy. But if they didn't get a chance to watch this, tried to make sure that I recorded it. It's recording. So I'm gonna also put it out there, like on the SMORE, the newsletter that we send out, and we'll ultimately try to get it up on the website as well. So you guys just let them know that they can still view it, even if they weren't able to be here for the live. Yes. Other questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
For the students that are in case, this is a new campus for him. So is an aide going to be up front to walk him all the way to
Yes,
his
ma'am.
class
We would
and not
definitely
assign a
yes,
line
ma'am. We would
or a
definitely have
space?
staff out there working with those kids, no doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna leave them hanging by any stretch. Good question. Other questions?
I do have one, Mr. Walker.
Hey there,
My
how
son
are
will be
you doing?
doing good. He's doing the koala care.
Yes,
Where
ma'am.
does that go? Where's drop off
So
the
that's
same
gonna
place?
that's gonna take. They'll send you specific instructions, but that's gonna most likely they're gonna drop off over there by the cafeteria, because normally that's where they reside. They reside in the cafeteria area, the gymnasium,
Okay.
the cafetorium, if you will. That side entrance, where the buses and all that are.
I don't, but I'll walk over there and get familiar with it.
And they'll give you times. If you want them there before school, that will be the only exception of kids who will come in a little bit earlier, because that koala care team is actually working with those kids. Like, they're physically with them.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Good question.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker, I apologize. I may have missed this. I joined a little late.
That's
Will the
okay.
students have the same teacher that they have virtually, or will they have a different teacher?
So primarily, we try to really keep that the same. And let me say this. There may be instances where they may be interfacing with a different teacher in some instances, but they will still have their same homeroom teacher. Whoever their teacher was will be their teacher. There may be instances in some grade levels where they'll kind of team teach in order to make sure that the virtual versus the in-person works smoothly. I'm just being very frank here. Some teachers are more comfortable with trying to teach both at the same time than others. So we've given them some options. If they needed to partner, we let them do that. If they needed to maybe say, okay, I'm gonna teach my in-person at this time, and then I'm gonna flip-flop, with my virtual, and have my in-person do some independent work. I'm just giving you kind of the scenario. And then other teachers, maybe 1 or 2 grade levels, the teachers might have felt more comfortable with one teacher doing all the virtual, for instance, if the numbers kind of worked out that way. So I follow up with your teacher, but 90% of the time it should be the same teacher. As far as even once we transition to the next step, which I'm getting hopeful when that, I can't give you a day or time when that'll happen, obviously, but when we begin to move beyond that, they would still have the same teacher, the homeroom teacher, as far as their, who their their homeroom teachers, that won't change. We made sure that we didn't do that because we don't want kids to get frustrated or parents to get frustrated with a whole lot of movement back and forth. And this wasn't your question, but I do want to say this. I just want to say this. Realizing that the district has given us that option to say, you know, that kids can switch, you know, back and forth, you know, pretty much whenever they need to. I just want to stress to parents, as much as humanly possible, we know circumstances are going to happen, things might change, but as much as possible, really try to make that solid decision at first so that our numbers, you know, won't fluctuate a whole lot, you know, really quickly. But we'll definitely work with everyone. It's just going to be something we're going to have to work through. But thank you. Good question. Other questions? Listen, if there are any more questions, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and